ACM hoichka CMCIA Skalutstan snot to Slewitith. Yotunan snot to Slewitith Squamish. The idea behind a welcome is historically that we welcome you to conduct your business accordance to our law. Kosalish law is truth, family, health, and culture. Then we add all the fundamental teachings of any religious and spiritual belief of love and honor and respect, dignity, pride, compassion, understanding, truth, knowledge, wisdom, courage, and bravery. That's the foundation of humanity. And I know we all understand that, because when a child is born, they're born perfect. You look at a baby, even a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, there's no prejudice, there's no anger, there's no hate, there's no judgment. And our fundamental teachings are about to raise them that way so they won't be influenced by our dysfunctional society that we live in. So along the way, I do welcome you on behalf of Tsleil-Waututh, my mom's family, Squamish, my dad's family, and my beautiful relations in Musqueam. I do welcome you. But what I think of, first off, is, I'm really sorry to the relations here of the Palestinian people. I'm really sorry that I feel your pain, and I know your pain. In Tsleil-Waututh, not long ago, my grandfather remembers when communities were wiped out. We're one of 80 communities in Coast Salish territory, and we were 20,000 right here in Vancouver, and we were wiped out down to 13 people. My mom, this is how recent it is, my mom is 62 out of those 13 people on 188. But what came with it, and what I could offer right now the most, because I seen the pictures, I seen the devastation, and when I talk about what Canada did to the Indigenous people, there's no nice way to put it. My grandfather, he's a famous actor who was nominated for Academy Award and wrote multiple bestsellers and was a humanitarian. His name is Chief Dan George, but when he went to residential school, he couldn't speak English, only our native language. And he was 4 years old and he cut his finger off and said, "Don't speak that language." And that was his introduction to his first week into residential school. My mom witnessed murders of little kids. But what that is, it's a hard thing because, with my mom and my grandpa, we had a love between each other. And that love is a spirit. I really believe that. And I know all of you understand, because if you love somebody special, you do a ceremony like everybody does around the world, and they honor the spirit of love between two people, and they do a ceremony and they call it marriage. That's a really good thing. But what my grandfather had experienced, and I see what the Palestinian people are experiencing, is there's also a spirit of trauma. There is. Two people come together and form a spirit of trauma. What I see, and it's still happening a bit today, in Canada here today, the incarceration rates are extreme. We're only 6% of Canada's population, but we're 40% of the jail population. My cousin did 30 years in jail for stealing. That's where we live today. So we're still dealing with the effects of that colonial system that created those residential schools and killed off our people. We're still dealing with effects, and it's evident by what I see on the street right behind us on Hastings Street. 40% of homeless are people that went through trauma and went through residential schools and were hurt and were abused. And the last school closed in 1986. Still suffering from that hurt. So what happens, and what I see across Canada, it was a collective trauma. It was collective right across the country, like what we're seeing in Palestine. It's a collective trauma. And so when two people come together, form a spirit of love, and it's like all the ceremonies I've been a part of around the world, in the middle of the outback in Australia, in the middle of jungle in Brazil, Southeast Asia. I did a sweat lodge for people who wanted to follow the same path of what I would believe about those fundamentals of humanity. And I did a sweat lodge ceremony for 12 priests. I'm going to do a sweat lodge ceremony for a dozen rabbis. And I pray with people who believe in the same thing, in the same direction of those fundamental teachings of humanity. Because what we get out of those ceremonies, and I believe this, is enlightenment. But in the ceremonies that I witness all over the world, they use fire to represent the sun, earth, something to represent earth. They use candles or incense, sage, sweetgrass, tobacco, that's what we use. They do something to represent the air and something to represent the water. And the same idea when two people fall in love, those medicines come together with intention. We light a candle, light some cedar, and smoke comes out of it, but with intention. I believe that's a spirit. That's a spirit, and that's what I see everybody do in their ceremonies. I never say no, almost. I do when I'm busy, but to an invitation for people that ask me to come pray with them. And I have an open door for people who want to pray with me. Because my grandfather said, if you're good at it, we could have a good moment together. But in these ceremonies, when they're done right, we have enlightenment. And what I believe in, that trauma that happens, that exists, it's just like an open wound in our arm. And that could be the trauma that I was inherited from my grandfather, getting his finger cut off. My mom witnessed little children being murdered and wondering if she's next. That's an open wound of trauma. Two people come together and they make a spirit of trauma. And in modern healing psychology, we could help people heal mentally and emotionally and physically, but we need that spiritual healing to close those spiritual wounds and those collective wounds that happen across Canada for the people that are outside on that street that are still suffering from the benefits of that trauma. But if we start to close those wounds, it stops and it scars and it won't affect the next future generations. I'm saying this because the best I could offer up, the best I could be for the people of Palestine is I come and speak at things like this because I don't want to see genocide. I see in those pictures of those little children dying and suffering. For what? Hurts. Best I could do is pray and start to close those wounds of those little spirits that didn't have a choice on how pain was going to be inflicted on them. I pray for that. I light my medicine. I do my ceremonies. I know it works because it helps my family. I know it works because I help thousands and thousands of people come in through our family ceremonies. I know it works. And I pray for those kids. I pray for you, my relations, my beloved relations. My beloved relations, you are. And we need to stop this dysfunctional world that we live in. If they had spirit in their life and teachings in their life, if they had teachings of what I'm talking about, they would have enlightenment that they wouldn't do things like this. They're so crowded with their dysfunction and lies that they continue to inflict hurt and pain. For what? Because they're dysfunctional and their spirits are broken. They don't have enlightenment. I believe what I encourage is that communal trauma that's happened to a country of people, a race of people, that we come together in places like this. And we do pray. We do send a big wall of love and protection around the people that are suffering. That's the very least we could do, is pray and support. Ask for protection. Ask for an end to this chaos. So in our culture, when I raise my hands and thank you, I'm raising you up and honoring you. You see that in Coast Salish culture. We raise our hands like this because we want to honor you. And I do honor you today. And I do thank you for coming and want to be a part of something to look at the truth of what's happening, to stop this genocide. It's important. It's important to add our spirit collectively to something that's devastating, where there's a communal trauma that's happening over there and here. Pray for the people that are here too, that are watching their families be hurt and die. Pray for them too, because I am and will be much stronger together. Like two people fallen in love, as brothers, as sisters, we form that spirit of love between one another. In our ceremonial houses like this, what I believe, when we're comfortable, our spirit will expand to the size of the space. And it will push out those things that don't match those teachings of humanity, of love and honor and respect and dignity, pride, and all those good things about how we're supposed to raise our kids. We will push it out collectively in a prayer. So I ask you to join me. I'm just going to sing one verse of my grandfather's song. It's his prayer song. And I ask you to join me in a collective prayer to pray for our beloved relations there and the beloved relations here as well that are suffering watching their families hurt. So join me in a prayer. Oh, Hilo, Hilo, hey, oh, Hilo, Hilo, hey, Ahed Oh, Hilo, Hilo, oh, hey. Oh, Hilo, Hilo, oh, hey. Ha-he-la, ha-ha. Ha-ha-ha, ha-he-la, ha-he-ah-hey. Oh, ho, ho, he-la, hey. Love and blessings to each and every one of you. Hojka CMCI. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. It was really moving. We're really grateful to have you here to open up this event. I really appreciate the connections that were made between genocide in Canada against Indigenous peoples here and the genocide that's happening in Palestine right now. Tonight, you will be given the opportunity to do something to help stop that genocide. My name is Veronica again, and I'm a member of Independent Jewish Voices. We have organized this event tonight in collaboration with the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies, North Shore for Palestine, Labor for Palestine, and the Global Peace Alliance. I would like to recognize that in attendance with us tonight, we have the Lebanese Honorary Consul, Dr. Nicholas Kawaji. We are very grateful that you were able to join us for this very important documentary and discussion afterwards. And I want to remind people that we are here against the backdrop of Israel's ongoing genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, as well as its invasion and continued bombing of Lebanon. Since last October, over 43,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, a number that is likely far higher than the official count and is widely estimated to be closer to 200,000. Recently, we learned that about 70% of the victims of that genocide so far have been women and children, with children between the ages of 5 and 9 years old being the most represented among the dead. Let us just sit with that for a few seconds. There are no words for what's happening, and that's just in Gaza. In the West Bank, in the last year, 700 Palestinians have been killed and almost 11,000 have been detained. And in Lebanon, more than 3,000 Lebanese civilians have been killed since Israel invaded the country less than 2 months ago. Although the documentary that we will be watching here tonight was filmed before the onset of the current genocide, and the situation on the ground has unfortunately gotten considerably worse, the depiction of Israeli occupation in this film is highly relevant to the current situation. We hope that the film and the discussion that follows will shed light on the lives of Palestinians living under occupation and apartheid, and that you will walk away tonight feeling that there is something that you can meaningfully contribute to the pursuit of justice for the Palestinian people. I would now like to hand over the mic to Dr. Adil Iskander, Director of the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies here at SFU.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Chief Ruben George, for your extremely powerful and deeply touching words. It's impossible to follow this. Maybe I can start with just the greeting in Arabic to all those who are in our company today. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum means peace be upon you, which is the simplest and most meaningful and most demanded request that we have as a people, to live in peace. And it is an inalienable right that we possess as human beings to live in peace. Over the past 14 and so months, we have seen the opposite of that, the complete decimation of human life. As I was saying assalamu alaikum to you today, I couldn't stop but think about how incredibly prohibitive it is to even speak the Arabic language in public space. For those of you who are following the news, on Remembrance Day in our national capital, a brief recital in Arabic of a Palestinian poem was deemed so unacceptable that the political leaders in this country not only rallied, but competed over how to condemn these words, that it was considered a desecration to the memory of those who lost their lives and to whom we celebrate or memorialize on Remembrance Day. This couldn't be farther from the truth. The Arabic language is, like any and all languages, is immensely beautiful. It is steeped in history and heritage, and those who speak it it's the third or fourth most spoken language in the world. We're not talking about, a disappeared language. It is a rich and dynamic language. Any attempt to erase it here or anywhere is bound to fail because it is connected to collective heritages and civilizations. In the same way that we have seen the resuscitation and the enlivening of Coast Salish languages, and I thank you, Chief Rubin, for reciting to us in the indigenous languages of this land, because it is a reminder that it does not matter how many members of these communities you annihilate or exterminate. Like Palestinians often say, we are seeds. We grow in the earth. Today, here at SFU, on behalf of the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies, I welcome you to this space, a space that allows us to contemplate, to convene, to think, and to meditate over loss, but also hope. There are many that were involved in making this possible, and I'm not going to mention them all, but I hope they get the credit that they rightfully and dutifully deserve, and I think Veronica mentioned some of the organizations. But I also wanted to mention, again, Independent Jewish Voices for the incredible work that they've done to make this possible. It is not easy to be Jewish in this moment. It is excruciating to be Palestinian, but we recognize that this is a difficult journey for our Jewish allies, comrades, and supporters. So please put your hands together. Thank you. There are too many unsung heroes, but I hope they get recognized. Some of them are wearing tags. You'll see them in the audience and later on. I also wanted to recognize the departments that supported this program today here at SFU, Sociology and Anthropology, and the School of International Studies. Here at the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies, we are in the process of doing something that I believe is quite extraordinary. We are trying our best to consecrate and render sustainable a research and educational and pedagogical agenda that centers the study of Palestine. We are in the process of launching a project on Palestine studies. And this is happening against a backdrop of incredible pressure from universities and various other institutions beyond us. And so I wanted to recognize very quickly a true community leader and Palestinian visionary here, Arwa Shurab, who is present with us. Can you raise your hand or stand up? In addition to being an absolutely remarkable advocate and an activist for justice, she is also the co-founder of BC MAP, the BC Muslim and Arab Professionals Network, and they have started a project, an initiative to fundraise for the project on Palestine studies. With deep commitment to supporting Palestine and amplifying the voices of marginalized communities, what we're trying to do is to raise funds for this project that will be launched by the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies. This initiative is dedicated to expanding academic and community-based programming that explores the history, present, and future of Palestine. The funds raised will support various project components, including pedagogical engagement, event series similar to this one, a resource library, and a scholarship program for Palestinian students, and hopefully we'll be able to make that materialize. These resources will foster education, advocacy, and meaningful dialogue on Palestine, equipping our community to better understand and address the forces of oppression and erasure impacting Palestinian and Muslim identities globally. But I also want to say that this will have a significant impact on addressing and combating anti-Palestinian racism, which is a fundamental concern for anyone in our midst today. Those of you who are wearing kufiyas or wearing badges or stickers or anything that represents your solidarity with Palestine, you realize that that is a target sign for you in society. You do so at immense risk to your well-being. And I wanted to say that this is a symptom of a larger problem, which is anti-Palestinian racism, which impacts many of us. This cannot continue, and the change must start within these universities where our academic freedom and our imperative to educate next generations starts with recognizing the inalienable right for us to stand in solidarity with Palestine. I was hoping that we would have a slide up that has a QR code. Oh, you have it? We can do it after the film, maybe? It's part of the thing? Okay, so you'll see a QR code for the Project on Palestine Studies. Please be generous. This is our attempt to consecrate the gains that we've made by creating these spaces that allow us to discuss what we've discussed thus far and will continue to do against the backdrop of incredible and sustained erasure. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know that you're eager to start watching this film and the follow-up discussion with none other than Ashira Darwish and Gabor Maté. Please enjoy the film.
So it's my honor to welcome to the stage Dr. Gabor Maté. Dr. Maté is a Holocaust survivor, Canadian physician, public speaker, and best-selling author. Dr. Gabor Maté will be speaking with Ashira Darwish. Ashira is an award-winning Palestinian journalist, activist, and trauma survivor who founded Catharsis Holistic Healing. And as a reminder, all proceeds from tonight's event are going towards Catharsis Holistic Healing to provide free trauma therapy for Palestinians. So they're both going to make some statements, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions.
Why don't you start? Okay, well, thank you for... Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. I figured out what the problem is with all of us. We're too cynical. We don't believe Netanyahu. That's the problem. Because he explained it really clearly in July. He said, I found this quote yesterday. I couldn't believe my eyes. Even I couldn't believe my eyes. Even after all these years. This is what he said. This is a conflict between barbarism and civilization. A clash between those who glorify death and those who sanctify life. And this is a man who's killed tens of thousands of civilians and people over the years, not just since October the 7th, but for decades before then, supported by all the governments, including our Canadian government. Justin Trudeau spoke the absolute truth when he explained why Canada supports Israel. He said it's because we have the same values. And we do. We are based on displacing and killing, if we have to, the indigenous population. They didn't quite succeed, as my good friend Ruben George exemplifies, but they came damn close. And it's still the same values of supremacy and colonialism and hostility towards the vulnerable and hostility towards the other. And that's what makes it so horrible, because this situation, and I speak as a Jewish survivor, as you know, as an infant of the Holocaust. I grew up with anti-Semitism in Hungary, saw the Vietnam War, where 2 million Vietnamese were massacred by the Americans, and the press lied about it. When Martin Luther King gave a speech in 1967 denouncing the war, the New York Times said, this time you went too far. But there was a difference at least the Vietnamese could fight back. They had weapons, they had an army, they had support of foreign powers. What we're watching right now is not a war. What we're watching is a slaughter. And it's just heartbreaking. And it's, you know, it's hard to compare atrocities. I mean, how do you compare one atrocity to another? But in a certain sense, it's the worst thing I've seen in my whole life, because we're seeing it. We're not just reading about it in the newspaper. I mean, there's some terrible things happening in the world. In Sudan, for example. We don't read about Sudan very much. The West has no stake one way or the other. But this one we're seeing on TikTok. We're seeing Israeli soldiers putting on Palestinian women's clothing and making funny videos. We're seeing Israeli soldiers dancing. Nurses are being shot as they're in the operating room. Doctors tortured to death. And we're watching this happen, and our press is lying about it, denying it, not even reporting it. I mean, it's enough to drive you crazy. And if it wasn't for the fact that people like Ashira have not given up, and they keep struggling, and they believe in themselves, and if it wasn't for the fact that there's people like here in the room and many others who at least care, whose hearts are at least open, it'd be actually unbearable. What makes it less unbearable is that we all know that we're not alone with this, that other people, even though we can't move the levers of power, at least feel the same way, and more are waking up. And that's what gives me a sense of positivity, if anything at all, in the midst of all this horror. And also, just the knowledge, as Ashira ends the film, this can't go on. At some point, it's not sustainable. A lot more people will suffer a lot more before it's over. But there's something in me that just does not accept, in fact knows, that it's not going to go on forever. And the thing is for us to endure and to do what we can until that day. It will not come, I don't believe, in my lifetime. Maybe not even in a lifetime of anybody in this room. I have no idea. I can't predict history. But we have to keep that light going. And as somebody said, Palestine is almost like the focal point of what's happening in the world. Because as Palestine goes, the world goes. So, Ashira.
Thank you. Salam لقلوبكم الطيبة. Peace to your kind hearts. I'm going to start where he ended, and I can see it. I can see the liberation of Palestine more clearly than I have before, despite everything that is happening. This film was filmed 2 years ago, before anything happened. And back then I used to say, inshallah, in my lifetime. Now I know it will be in my lifetime. I know that Yassine and Lyra will see a free Palestine. It's just a matter of time, and it's just a matter of us believing. It cannot be sustained, and what they have done is they have completely committed suicide with this genocide. The more they kill from us, the more they kill from internally, and the more they are self-destructing. And for us, it's just a matter of holding on and holding to the faith and what happened around the world with what is happening to us, the massacres, the horrors that we have had to witness, is it unveiled all of the West. We as Palestinians have been free for a long time mentally. We know what occupation is. We know what colonization is. We know what genocidal ethnic cleansing means in a mentality, in an ideology, and we've been living face to face with that. And we know what capitalism brings to the world. And we have seen it. What is happening now is that everybody gets to see the hypocrisy. The whole world gets to see that it's not okay. It's not okay if a white gets killed, or if religiously Jews or Christians, because even we have Christian Palestinians who are getting slaughtered. Nobody cares about them. Because they are of darker skin and they live in Gaza. The oldest church in Gaza was destroyed and the world witnessed it without moving an inch. But this whole idea of human rights, this whole idea that the West has been feeding us this democracy, this idea that they're free and they want to free us, has completely evaporated. We know now that us, the barbarian savages, have the truth and have always had the truth. We know that our tribes are the reason why they want us. We know that our brothers and sisters who have faced the genocide here and in America know exactly what it means, because they wanted to destroy their tribes. They wanted to separate them, individualize them, make them into soulless humans, robotics, like the rest of them, like they are. They wanted to transform everybody into robots because they don't have that. They don't have the tribe. They don't have the community. They don't have their jealousy of not. I don't know how you would probably make it into something even you'd philosophize it, but it's their lack of that which makes them come after what we have, because they know when we come into tribe, when we fight together, when we die together, when we mourn together, when we feel the plants and the earth, when we touch our olive trees as they cry, we die with them, that we are so connected and held. And they don't have that. They are isolated. Even within these worlds that they think that it's free, they're so isolated, living very cold lives. I've spent a few months only in the West, and months living. I've traveled a lot. بس يعني I kind of feel the aliveness every time I meet with Palestinians. I'm like, يا لهوي, they think they're living. Oh my God, they think that they're free. When are they going to wake up to what they're living through? We mourn for hundreds and thousands of Palestinians, then we come together and we hold each other and we grieve together in dabke, in dance, in song, in music, and we hold to each other and we still remain connected. And we stay strong. This is why they can't destroy us. They try everything, they do everything, but they can't. And what they're doing is unveiling and revealing what's going through. And I think that I feel that their trauma is creating years and thousands of years for us trauma to deal with. But people tell me, like, how do you think as Palestinians you're going to heal after? And I'm like, there's immense trauma that we've never experienced around the world. I will just tell you about one child in Ramallah who I held, and his mother was sick on October 7th. She was just sick for that day. She had a flu. And because she had a flu, she told his grandmother to take him on that day to cross the Erez checkpoint, to go to the hospital to receive his medical aid. He has not seen his mother for a whole year. Yamin thinks that his grandmother is his mother. He lost his father, all of his brothers, and he sits in Ramallah until today not knowing. This is a child who survived very far in a distance, in Ramallah, in the safety. But this is just one child who's been separated. If you can think of the millions of orphans we had before this, just because people think that this was the beginning, we had 200,000 orphans in Gaza before this, from the 2014 war, from all the wars before. If you can imagine now the number of Palestinian orphans that we have in Gaza. The level of trauma is beyond anything. But the one thing that I keep telling people is, I know us. And I know the way that we have sumud. It's engraved within the system, within the body, within the narrative, within the songs, within the faith, within what holds us together. And I know that we will go through it. And inshallah, we will be much better to them after we wake up from the shock, so that we don't do to them what they have done to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both. I know that you would like to offer up questions to the audience. So are we ready for questions? Great. Okay, so you can just, if you raise your hand, she will bring up a mic. Oh, wait, we have a lot of hands, so.
I'll be the water.
Thank you for sharing the film as well as your experience. I'm Shiraz. I do Grandparents Film Festival, and I'm glad you have grandparents in the film represented. My question is about the Israel army, which has 30% women and in the army, including the pilots and so on. So have you ever met any of the soldiers in the Israeli army who are active or who have refused to participate in this war? Male and female. Thank you.
I'm just going to repeat the question for Gabor. So he was asking, I think it was directed towards Ashira. He was asking Ashira if she's ever met women in the Israeli army, because I think he mentioned about 30% in the IDF are women, and if she's ever met any of them and met any women in particular who refused to serve.
So I've met the soldiers. I've met my interrogators. I've met I've met soldiers on the checkpoint who cursed my mother every day. But you mean like met them as in personally had a conversation with a soldier? Yeah. So the only conversations I would have is in confrontations, in protests. And we, as a Jerusalemite, you interact with Israelis. All Israelis are soldiers, effectively. They're born with the number of military service that they're going to have. They start their military, even at the kindergarten, you have visits from the army as young as kindergarten, so that they can start getting used to the idea of the military, and they start glorifying the military because they need their children to get into the army. So it starts from kindergarten throughout school that you're indoctrinated to be a good soldier. So each Israeli that you encounter is effectively a soldier. The doctor who did my surgery, Barzilai, is in the reserve. And he told me, oh, see, it's not so bad. A Jew broke you, but here I am fixing you. And it's, I have some of my mom's friends from university. I recall Micha. They took me some, yeah. I recall some, but I've never had very, I would say, deep friendships. The only friendships I have are with anti-Zionists, and these are, they don't call themselves pretty much Israeli. They call themselves Palestinian Jews, and they fight with us. They protect us. I'll just say Jonathan Pollag, who's physically protected me in protests from arrests and from getting shot. And there are brothers and sisters in arms, yani. These are people who put their life in order to protect us. There's Oren Ziv, if you've seen him on the media. Oren has protected us constantly before he took up the camera. There are many Israeli Jews who are in the struggle with us, and they're seen as our heart and soul in the struggle, because we need them. And soldiers, no, not really. We don't really get to do that.
Are there any refuseniks, the people who refuse to be part of the army?
Yeah, the ones who refuse usually go to prison, and we have, so these would be like people like John. These are the anti-Zionists, anti-Israeli. So these, yes, I know them. These are the people I'm telling you about. They went to prison, they refused to serve, and then they come out and they become very active in the Palestinians. There's a group called Anarchists Against the Wall. There's Boycott from Within, are a few to mention. But they're very small group.
Thank you.
My question is for Dr. Maté. I teach grade 5, and I think it's time for them to learn about Palestine. They're not too young. And I'm wondering, Dr. Maté, what tips do you have for taking care of the mental health of my students as we learn this difficult but necessary material?
Just to make sure that you protect them, but also teach them what's happening at the same time.
In British Columbia, in the 1960s, there were textbooks that taught about these crazy Indians who tried to stop the railway from coming across Canada. Because the railway was on their lands, you see, but the brave RCMP protected the railway. This was textbooks in British Columbia until not that long ago. So the textbooks, I'm just wondering, what is it that you're able to tell your students now about what happened in Canada? That's beginning to happen now, but I'm not up on the curriculum, so I don't know what in grade 5 you're able to teach your kids about, never mind Gaza, but about Canada. How much latitude do you have? Here in British Columbia, a member of the party that nearly became the ruling party in the last election called the indigenous people savages and said that 90% of them were on drugs. Do you think she was kicked out of the party? They barely censured her, I think. So I don't know how much latitude, and given how reticent we are about even telling our own history, I don't know how much latitude you have about talking about Gaza. Because I'm telling you, as soon as you do, there are going to be people after you to call you an anti-Semite and to say that you're teaching hatred to your students. So you face that risk. Now, if you're willing to face that risk, then you could say to your students that what happened to the indigenous people in Canada is happening to other indigenous people elsewhere, including in the Amazon, including in Africa, including in Australia, and also right now in Gaza and in Palestine. So if you could put it in the context of Canadian history and world colonial history, then you could also tell them about what's happening there. What I don't know, and I don't know how to answer for you, is how much latitude you actually would have to say any of those things. Because I'm telling you, and I'm not trying to discourage you, on the contrary, but you need to know what you're going to face when you open your mouth. That's the reality in this country.
I'll just add that I have a 4-year-old daughter. She just turned 4. And if I got his advice on how to explain to her what's happening in Gaza, which is not to lie, because she can feel my nervous system when everything was happening. So I had to explain to her that things were going on. And now I've explained to her in the US, the first time we landed in Turtle Island, it was very important for me to explain to her that what has happened to the natives. And also here in Canada, the moment we arrived, I told her this happened also here. And she's asking and she's questioning, and I need that to be her reality so that she can also understand. It can't be that it's okay it's not okay to kill Palestinians, but it's okay to kill somebody else. And if you can in the schools teach them about the natives, you've already liberated half of us. It's the same mentality. Yep. And if you're doing the work here, it's liberating us Because if the children understand that what's happened here is wrong, then automatically you don't need to tell them about Gaza or Palestine. They will know what's right and what's been done. And part of why the Western world can't see is because they're not taught their own history. A lot of people that I come into encounters with, they stand up and they want to fight for Palestine, and they're not willing to feed somebody homeless on the street. How are you going to liberate Palestine if you see walk past somebody who's homeless?
Thank you. I do want to add something quickly. There are some groups in Vancouver who are working towards making sure that we can have Nakba education in schools. So there's Parents for Palestine, Independent Jewish Voices is working on it. I know there's many other groups that I can't think of off the top of my head. So if you want to, you can connect with them and have those discussions, because there's many people who are kind of facing the same thing.
Thank you so much for the documentary. I cannot even put into words the respect that I have for everyone who's been a part of making this documentary. My question was for Ashira. So, like, the documentary started with you saying that your mom mentioned to you that, hey, there's a protest that's going on, and like, let's go and sing. And so you were you were skeptical about that back then, and then like time goes by, and then you go through the surgery, and you mentioned that as soon as you want to remove the tape and you want to sing. And my question is, why and how has singing become so important to you? And if I may ask, what was the meaning of the verse that you sang? Like, there was a beautiful verse there which was inserted in the documentary, and I'm wondering if it has a meaning. But, thank you.
I'm just going to repeat the question quickly for Gabor. She was asking Ashira what singing means to her, and what were the words that she was singing when she was in that really horrific situation.
So sing. Yeah, exactly. He can also sing, you know. So singing is everything. It's my expression. It's my ability to. It's my. It's my healing. It's how I release my anger, my rage. And as a child, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to sing all the time. I drove my mother crazy. She would pay me money to be quiet. But yeah, immediately after my detention, it was like, what am I going to sing for? And funny enough, it's everything that I did in the protest was chanting. So I couldn't throw rocks. The first time I did, I hit a guy, and they were like, never do that again. I was a collector of the rocks. And music has also, when I was injured, I was using isotones and binaural beats for my healing, for my brain. And it worked very, very strongly on me being able to sit into focus and to sit into meditation and to sit and to also recall and have visions, like to visualize my body in full healing when I was in the paralysis stage. So it's very important for me, and it's my music. I was also singing in the prison so that I can release. And it's funny, I just had an interview, and somebody interviewed me for the first time about the sounds of detention. And I never realized it. I always thought that the first detention was really minute, and it was nothing to do, like it wasn't very effective. Like the only thing that I thought of was that it made me want to become a journalist. But when she took me through a journey and she asked me to recall all the sounds that I heard from my detention, I had a whole other memory of trauma. The sounds of the chains, the sounds of the doors. And I realized so much about my trauma comes from that one single day of detention because of the sound. So sound is very important in the way that we perceive, in the memory, in the trauma, and in how we heal the trauma on a later stage. And the song is فَلْتَتَجَلَّى, and it means the best way to translate it, because English is very, very, very simple. So it's to ascend. So it's transcend. So it's asking for God, the divine, to transcend within my veins. I call him very angrily. This was after I lost a few friends and I was doing a lot of harsh work with Human Rights Watch and Amnesty. And I was telling, like, I'm sitting in the mosques and churches and I can't find you. You're not here. I'm searching for you in the graveyards between the mothers of the martyrs and you're not here. So can you just transcend within my body and in my cells? And it's a plea for God to transcend within me. I can sing us out at the end. It'll be the last thing we do.
Wonderful, thank you. So he was asking, as someone who has survived the Holocaust and been through trauma therapy, he was wondering what happens when the occupation ends, and how do we do a sort of deprogramming on a mass scale with the Israelis? I think specifically Israelis. Zionists, considering how pervasive the propaganda is.
You know, that's the kind of question I can't possibly answer. So much depends on what kind of history will go down before Zionism comes to its natural, merciful end, or merciless end, whatever the case may be. Who knows? It might happen, as the Israeli historian Ilan Pappé predicts, Israel will just implode because of its own contradictions. It might happen because Israel is, what is Israel? It's a little puffed up frog whose venom, 7 million Jews, the venom that it's able to inject into its environment comes from the support of the most powerful and most vicious empire in the history of the world. When that empire falls, which it will, how will it implode before then? Or will it come to a catastrophic end when it's no longer able to dominate the hundreds of millions of oppressed Arabs around them? And when these acolytes, regimes, these traitor regimes in the Middle East, betraying their own people, as Sisi in Egypt, or whatever his name is in Saudi Arabia, or the Hashemites in Jordan, will no longer be able to keep their people down. What will happen? Will it be a peaceful end? Will it be a catastrophic end? So I can't possibly predict what's going to happen. Any number of scenarios are possible. In terms of deprogramming, people don't get deprogrammed. I was in Germany this last summer, speaking in Berlin at something called the Said, the Barenboim Academy, which was started by two friends, Edward Said, the Palestinian writer and academic and musician, and Daniel Barenboim, who was one of the great musicians of the Western world, grew up in Israel. And they started an orchestra together of Palestinian and Jewish and other young people, the East-West Divan Orchestra, to promote peace and understanding and harmony through music. In Germany, you may remember this, there was a film about the occupation. What's the name of the film? You know the one? Sorry?
Israelism?
No. The one about that village made by the Israeli filmmaker and... No, not even Tantura. That was about a massacre in 1948. This is a film made by an Israeli filmmaker and his Palestinian friend. That won the Best Film Award at...
No Other Land.
No Other Land, yeah, No Other Land. This film won an award at the Berlin Film Festival this last summer. The Israeli Jew and the Palestinian Muslim went on stage together to receive the award. The Israelis said that when we go back to Israel, I'll be a full entitled citizen, go anywhere I want to go. I'll be able to vote for what government I want. My friend won't be able to leave his village without a permit, without going through checkpoints, and he's got no political rights whatsoever. He said this in Berlin. The whole Berlin academic establishment and the political establishment came down on them and they said, "You're an anti-Semite." This is an Israeli Jew saying this about his own country, and he's called an anti-Semite in Germany. And there are Jews in Germany who speak out against the massacres taking place. They're called anti-Semites. They're not allowed to speak. You think the Germans have been deprogrammed? They haven't learned a bloody thing. All they've done is they've farmed out their guilt onto the Jews, which can then inflict it on the Palestinians. And yet Germany was supposed to have gone through this denazification program. So here's what I'm saying. Nobody gets deprogrammed unless they want to. Whether the Jews will have the grace, I say the Zionist Jews, will have the grace at some point to see, okay, maybe we were on the wrong track. Maybe we need to decolonize our minds. May it come to that. But there's no guarantee that it will. And who knows how it'll end. I know I'm not sounding terrifically jolly tonight, but I'm just looking at reality the way I understand it. You know, so I don't know how it's going to go. And you certainly can't deprogram anybody unless they want to be deprogrammed.
Thank you so much. We would love to, I'm sorry, I have to end the audience questions. We would love to be here with you all night, but we have to be out of here before 10 p.m. I was told it's time to go. I'm really grateful to both of you, Gabor and Ashira, for being with us tonight. And for the beautiful documentary that was made. I think I speak for everyone when I was deeply moved by what I saw, and I thought that this conversation was incredibly moving as well, and really fruitful, even if you are a little bit of a grouch tonight, Gabor.